Hello, television. A couple of people have mentioned television in comments, and it's something that we all know about and can talk about, but it's very difficult to talk about because I am coming from a place where I don't watch television, and it's very difficult, really impossible for me to kind of talk about it without an air of superiority coming on board and, I don't watch television, you do, that sort of thing. So it's difficult. And there are loads of things that are difficult. When thinking about this, I was even thrown back to free will and whether you can actually choose to watch television or not, or it's just part of the meme and that's what you do. So it's very hard to find an in to this video. So I think I'll start with one of the memes that's in here that recurs many times and gives me it's a bit of a prismatic thing. And it is me imagining me on my deathbed, asking myself how I did in the world, as it were. And am I happy that I did this, and this, and didn't do this, and this, for example. So it's a projection forward to be looking backwards. And I'll just quickly throw in, just so I'm happy in my mind, that there's a very good argument to make that it really doesn't matter whether you go and become a tramp and walk around the world until you die, or whatever you do, it doesn't really matter. Now, there's a good argument to make for that, but I'm not going to go with that. And I'm not going to go with the superior argument either. But it's just asking if we think we're making the best of our lives by watching television. That's one thing that I'd certainly like to put out. Where and it's not the important but one, but I'll stop on there and try and do some talking on that. I know how it goes. The idea is that you go out, you do your day's work, and you come back in and you're exhausted, mentally fatigued, and all you can do is flop on your couch, do some feeding of the face and watch what happens on the television. Channel surfing is the most active thing that happens then before bedtime. How to attack this? I think the angle in that I'll use is it's very non-constructive. Now, I don't know if I'll get away with this, but we'll see how we go. As in, it's purely taking. You're just sitting there and taking in what's given to you. As I say, the only interaction you get is the zapping on the zapper. I would say that a way of watching television would be, if you must have the news, okay, the news, whatever, but about these things that people talk about over what they call the water cooler, isn't it? The water chiller at work, and you talk about things, and one of the things might be the TV programme of the day, which people apparently still do age 35 and 45, where I can imagine it was perfectly reasonable to do at 15, but still to be doing it at 45. I can't help thinking there's something wrong there. I'd wait till they watch these television programmes, and they'd been, it's on its 4th, 5th series now, and you can go and watch one or two on YouTube or something and see if you like it. That saves you watching a whole load of junk that this is what I can't get into my head, is the sitting there and watching hour after hour of junk. And I'm saying it's junk because people say it's junk. I know, I've heard them and seen them and read them, and they go, there's nothing but junk on the television, but they still watch 6 hours of it every day. Okay, I'll try and expand on the negative or positive or constructive and non-constructive. How about this? You're not doing anything. Would it not be better, I'll enter it that way, would it not be better if you didn't watch the television? If you wanted a distraction, you put music on, or maybe the radio, and you could make a plastic model of something. You're constructing something then. And the angle in there is that if you do construct something, or turn the radio off, you could learn to play the guitar or the piano, you know, just those little plastic organ things, and then have earphones. You don't have to make noise, or there's no excuse not to do these things if you were inspired to do them. And what the inspiration is that the giving is a greater thing to the human than receiving. And just sitting there and receiving television doesn't give you any, not stimulus, it doesn't stimulate your self-respect. And I think if we have come off line somewhere along the line, we're too delicate with ourselves that we can't admit that we're not very good at something. Like if you make a bad model aircraft, this nowadays is bad. But for my mind, to make a bad model aircraft is on the way to making a better model aircraft, to making a good model aircraft. Or there's nothing wrong with making a bad model aircraft, because you've done it yourself, you've constructed it yourself, you've given out yourself. And the more you give out yourself, I think that's where you get quite a lot of self-respect from. And I would imagine, projecting forward, looking backwards, that I'd look back and say, well, I'm glad I tried that. I'm glad I tried that. Although I wasn't very good at it, I'm glad I tried that, etc., etc. And generally all those I tried that are giving things and pushing out. It's not just sitting there and watching television. Now, unfortunately, this isn't YouTube, and I'm just talking to you lot, who are at least halfway, as in you probably do a good considerable amount of internet work, as opposed to just watching television. And let's say that's just a level, as in watching television is just the purely veg receiving thing. Doing the internet is more interactive, so it's giving and taking. But then with the internet, if it's just the internet, but I'd like to introduce other things like flower arranging. It doesn't matter what it is, but going out there and doing something is much more betterer for your own self-respect. And it's all of those things are all to do with giving. And the dodgy thing about giving is when you give, somebody can always judge the quality of your giving. And many people don't want to put out because they know what they do put out will be judged, and they just don't want to be judged just in case the judgment comes in negatively. So if I've got to tie this up, I would say watching television can't, good, I wanted to keep out. It's just receiving, it's nothing, it's less than nothing. Interacting on the interwebs, not bad. But actually getting out there and doing something, it does open you up for criticism. So you think your self-respect could take a knock, but it really is worth the effort doing it. Because I think when you get to that place when you're older and you look back on your life, you'll wish that you had risked a bit more, pushed out that little bit further, and risked your ego, your little self-respect. And you will find that the more you do push out, the more it's going to finish sounding a bit selfish, but the more you don't really mind about the criticism of others, because you've pleased yourself so much by giving, because you realise that giving out is it's not what we're here to do. That's a ridiculous way of putting it. But it is what gives the human being, I think anyway, the most amount of pleasure, is getting out and giving out there. It might not be much, but giving out is the way to go. And television, seems to me, is the opposite side of that. It's just a nothing. It's receiving, when giving is the real thing to be doing. I'll leave it there and see if it sparks some comments. Comments, that's another thing. I mean, that's giving. It's giving out a comment. And I'm sorry, I'm sometimes a bit cruel in comments, comment replies, but even just making a comment it's getting out there and interacting. It is a bit risky, because your comment will be regarded and rated by other people. But really, if that's your minimum contribution to interaction, it's worth it. And then if you get past commenting, you get to blogging, or even you might even one day get to flower arranging, or whatever it might be. But I'll try and make it practical. If the world continues falling apart the way it is, it will be the interacting types that get on best in community that will be the most important people in that community. The people that want to just go in their door, shut the doors behind them and regret the fact that television went away, you know, that they are just going to shrink away. This is going to be the age of people getting out and giving, and the givers will recognise other givers, and it'll be them that hold hands and get some society together. But the takers will have to rely on charity, and there might not be much of that going around. I'm sorry to have gone to doom and gloom at the end of something on television, but that's the way it went. Bye.